Thanks for joining us today, Ms. Idlout. So from what the NDP has been saying in recent weeks, is it correct to say that Indigenous services will have a smaller budget in 2024?
Well, according to their 2023 and 2024 departmental plans, that's what we interpreted.
And what are the areas that the NDP believes we can expect to see these cuts in?
So for funding announcements going back to 2019, the programs that would sunset include Jordan's Principle and supporting the Inuit Child First initiative. Then in 2021, funding for mental health and wellness would sunset, as well as with the budget 2022 funding to implement the federal framework to address the legacy of residential schools. These are just some of the major areas that we've decided to highlight.
And what does the party think the Liberals need to do in the budget in order to address the Indigenous housing crisis?
They need to expand on investments for infrastructure to Indigenous peoples. I know that specifically for the territorial governments, they've requested $600 million, and I know that the need is far greater. When the Liberal and the NDP signed on for the supply and confidence agreement to provide support for Indigenous housing, we came to $4 billion over 7 years, but we maintained that even that was not enough.
And what about the overall infrastructure gap?
The overall infrastructure gaps, like according to the Assembly of First Nations and the work that NDP has been helping to find, the First Nations infrastructure gap is $349 billion. Indigenous Services Canada has committed to filling that gap by 2030, and we have yet to see any substantial plans to make sure that even milestones are reached, because 2030 is fast approaching. Those major investments need to happen right away.
And if the Liberals don't reverse course, what will this mean for Indigenous people?
Indigenous peoples will remain marginalized. I've said this time and time again. I was just in Kimirut, where the lack of investments force Inuit in that community, Northerners in that community, to endure hardships like overcrowded housing, the housing condition. Most houses are molded. The community has one school that is way too small. It's in severe and dire need of renovations. They need a new school, as well as an elders facility. There are so many huge infrastructure gaps for all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. And if these investments continue to be underfunded, unfortunately, we're going to continue to see Inuit, First Nations, and Métis to be marginalized in Canada's society.
Well, we'll have to leave it there, but once again, thanks for joining us today, Ms. Idlout.
Ayan na Savannah.